Hi, I'm Monica from Numberly. So I talked to an awful lot of founders, and I wanted to share with you the top 3 mistakes that are related to the financial model that I find a lot of startup founders make. So the number 3 is that this idea of more is better is going to win over potential investors. So more customers that we're going after, perhaps combining B2B and B2C, more products that we're going to launch, and more revenue streams. So for example, we're going to layer on advertising revenues on top of our subscriptions, and we're going to have upsells, and maybe we're also going to have merchandise. And the problem with this approach is that it's actually the opposite of what investors are looking for. So investors very highly value focus, which means that you're going to focus on and target one particular customer segment. So either B2C or B2B, depending on whatever is the lowest hanging fruit. You're going to grab it. You're going to make it work. You're going to show product market fit in that particular segment and then expand from there. And that means customer segments. That means more products later on. That means additional revenue streams, but all of that comes later. And what they really value is we're going to do this thing, or these couple of things, we're going to do them really well, and then we're going to grow from there. And this is how we're going to do that step by step. The second most common mistake that I see founders making is to confuse revenues and cash. I've actually done a video, it's number 11 on the series, talking very specifically about the differences between invoices, MRR, and cash. So please watch that, and hopefully it's useful. But overall, it really depends on the period that your subscriptions, let's say, for example, you are offering a subscription or a SaaS platform, and it's a monthly subscription, then in this case, your MRR will equal your cash if it's a B2C platform and your customers pay you immediately. It may not be the same even if your customers pay you monthly. For example, if you've got a B2B platform and then you invoice them and then you don't actually receive the cash till 30 or 60 days later. So you really want to be very mindful of the difference between your revenues and your cash, because you don't want to be in a position where you're expecting revenues and they don't actually arrive until later, and you're stuck because you need to cover your expenses in the meantime. And the number one mistake that I see founders making when it comes to the financial model is, there's actually a term for it. It's called being delusional, being a delusional startup founder, and it's something you really should try to avoid. And it's this idea that we're going to do much more in terms of revenues than is actually credible and realistic from an investor standpoint. So we're going to get to 1 million in sales in year 1, and at the same time we're sort of underestimating the cost that it requires to get to that very, very ambitious level. And part of that is the mindset that, and it's a very natural way of thinking, because it's sort of the way that we would like things to work, that everything's going to happen quickly, and we sort of know how to do this. We think we've got a unique product, we've got an amazing team, and so therefore it's not that it's going to be easy, but we think that, we're going to be able to accomplish all of these things. And the reality is, and I've seen this time and time again, whether it was in my own personal startup experience or working with other founders, that things just take much longer than any of us think or expect, and they also turn out to be much harder than any of us think or expect. And that's because the reality is that being an entrepreneur, running a startup, is very difficult. So in summary, the way to, I think, avoid the top 3 mistakes made by a lot of startup founders is to focus with a capital F, think narrow rather than broad, understand what's driving your cash versus your revenues, and be cognizant and mindful of the timing of that cash. And then finally, accept that almost everything about your startup is going to be harder and take longer than you might think. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, please go to numbly.io and the chat bot on the lower right. Thanks very much.